Oh my gosh, there's someone here. What's going
There
on?
is.
I just got another acceptance to be in volume 2.
Oh, good. I'm very glad to hear it.
Except it's not a woman, so it's not very useful.
Well, you can't have everything. Chocolate and a surprise. What did you expect?
Yeah, so Günther texted just now, he emailed, he can't be here, and Megan said she can't be here, and yeah. But let me just tell you a little bit about that history list we've been discussing.
Oh, yeah.
So reading that in Reader means you can select anything, do Command F, see all the occurrences.
Yep.
Considering there are some mistakes in this first edition, only, that year is before that, it's in the wrong place.
Yeah.
What I'm planning to do, and I honestly wasn't going to tell you about it, I'm going to have a second printing of the first edition.
Okay.
I think I'll keep the same DOI, but inside it'll say, and there will be typo corrections, but no factual corrections. Does that give you a heart attack?
No, not at all. No, it's reprint with corrections. No, and if anyone's really fashed, they can always go and get a free copy of the PDF to cross read with their thing. So no, I really, outside a sort of citation nerd fest or something. No, I think it does what it says on the tin. Anyone who gets it out of the new reprint will be none the wiser, and that's all great. So okay. No, that's good.
Good to have you.
Hi. I'm just going to grab something. I'm still here.
Hello, Raphael. Yeah, I can see in the reflection of your monitor at the back there. Ah, Raphael, you're here properly. Oh, no, it was actually when Mark was walking across the room, I saw him still, but yeah, that's a good monitor. I was just telling Mark about a brief thing, just worth mentioning to you as well. So I think you both know that my teaching cohort for Hyperlink Academy is now live. So that's very, very exciting. 2 people have already signed up. They want to give me $250 each to hear me talk about stuff. So that's
wow. That's really good.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised and overwhelmed. What are you drinking? Is that famous South American matcha?
No, this is Japanese green tea. It's a Genmai cha. It's the one with rice and green leaves.
Yeah,
it's green tea with rice.
That's nice. I have an unhealthy coffee here.
I have an even unhealthier. So water's not safe to drink, so I'm on the. It's that time of the week. It's peanut butter.
Yeah, I usually have a tea right next to me, like all the time.
Cool. Yeah. So, right. So here's the thing. There's lots of things going on, but in my little life, the most exciting thing is, as you know, in the end, at the end of the Future of Text book, there's a timeline of some of the entries for the history of text.
Yes.
So first of all, I'm going to do a reprint of the Future of Text, correcting typos, no factual, no editing as such. And also a few items in the timeline are in the wrong order, just a few items, no big deal at all. Factually, it makes no difference. But this made me think that the point of having the timeline in the book is it's intended to be read in Reader. And as you know, if you select any name, let's say Engelbart to Command F, you see all the occurrences of Engelbart. So in a sense, everything is linked with everything, can do cool things. So I have started producing a booklet called The History of Text. So there's a beginning page, 1 or 2 page thing on the very first origins of digital text, just making the point that we don't actually know when it happened. Then I'm trying to write a paragraph on something. Anyway, you'll see. Then all the rest of the book is just an entirely long list of these timeline dates. And then there is a suggested reading list at the end, which has, one is paratext, one is history, one is thinking with paper, and one is metadata, so people have an idea where to go. So I'm inviting people to come in and help me with this book to do fact checking. So people who help me with fact checking, as Mark already has, will be credited at the end of the book. So that's doing several things. It's helping protect my back. It's also helping those who might want to use it as an authoritative source for information about an event that certain people have gone through, not necessarily the whole thing. I will also hire normal fact checkers to not go through everything, it's just too expensive, but at least to go through randomly and make sure that there are at least sources for things. Because I will not cite anything in this book, in this list, because everything should be findable easily through just a keyboard shortcut. Hi, Peter.
Yeah.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
We just went through, I'm publishing the timeline from the Future of Text as its own volume, a little booklet called The History of Text.
Oh, I like it. Good idea.
Thank you. And I was just inviting you guys, if you want to add items or check items or whatever, of course, with full credit in the book.
Yeah, I think it's useful. Are you going to start sort of at the digital phase, or are you going to do the whole thing from the get-go in this?
It starts 8,000 years ago.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not fast either way. But I just heard you make reference to the thing about the fact that the beginnings of digital text are, well, has a long piece of string. What aspect of it do you want to take first? But I think it's useful to do. The other interesting thing is actually having it in the book makes it a published reference, which means that when you sent me the thing the other day, I was thinking, that'd be interesting to sort of back this into something like Wikidata. But then you get all the wiki Nazis who come out and say, you can't put this in because, process X says you got to do something. And so, no one's saying it's wrong. They're just saying that,
Not sufficiently famous yet. Right? It's not sufficiently recognized yet.
Yeah. I mean,
I
get the idea behind
original information here. You invented it yourself, so it's no good because it's original content, and we cannot permit any original content from the people who actually invented the technology. No.
It's that sort of thing. Can you prove you exist?
Yes. Someone has to validate your existence.
Yes.
Yeah, and Mark, that actually brings up the most important point that I'm trying to make with this book, and that is that. Hang on, I'll just read it. It's really pathetically, horribly, badly written now, and it's written in a very preachy tone, which is, of course, what I need to get away from. But I'll read you guys the brief paragraph anyway, because I'm sure you have plenty to say on this topic. There is no truth in text because text communicates from a perspective. There are lies in text, however. Interacting with the text through reading other sources, using digital interactions, or talking to people leads to clarity. The truth will still remain a naive goal. The authority of the author comes from the cost of production. The speed of social media transmission comes from a focus on the share and like clicks. Clarity will only come from multiple perspectives. it is written. Highlighting the need for interactivity, right?
Mm.
Mhm.
So I want to find a less horribly worded way, but when you're talking about exactly the issue you brought up now, that's what that is.
Yeah, there's also another interesting facet that's sped through my mind as you were saying that is the broad tent that we have around text includes some quite different things. There are people whose interest is, well, things like the authenticity of text and the postmodernists who want it to be whatever you want it to be. There are people who are just trying to write stuff down, who are more in the sort of documentation and archival world. There are people who are looking at the sort of symbologic. I'm tripping on the word. Representation. So people who look at the calligraphy and the fonts and all this sort of thing, which is all part of the understanding that's in it. And there'll be one or two others, and there are perhaps some other in our general going forward the future text. Those may be some strands to pick out, because that was one of the things that I was thinking of on the my never-ending to-do list, and thinking of the future of text, was thinking of some way of doing a very light form of metadata around some of the contributions, and trying to map them into what aspect of this very broad area of text that they touch on. And I'm not thinking of it from the purpose of a taxonomy, and everything's got to be rammed firmly into a whole. It's more saying, if you want to find, people who are talking about symbology, these articles are a good place to start. People who are talking about meaning of text or narrative or whatever. And it might be another nice way for people to enter in to the whole.
I have a big yes, that's wonderful, and also a yes, but. And I think this is worth a real deep discussion, because on the yes, but, I don't want to categorize anyone as an editor.
Sure.
However, it is extra work for people to categorize themselves. That's why it wasn't done in the first edition. But if we can find a way through this, and Raphael, you forced us into the Circle community thing, which is great. If we can use that kind of infrastructure to help people self-tag or community tag each other, whatever, that sounds reasonably interesting for everybody, right?
Sure. I would say I wasn't thinking in what I just said of it being something necessarily even as formal as being in the book, but just as a sort of bit of metadata around it, in a way of helping sort of people understand the nature of the whole. I mean, you can pick up the book or the PDF and start on page 1 and read through, or you can, start on page random, but there's a lot there, and I was just thinking it might be a way to sort of say within the subject of text, there are all these different facets. They all sit down to the same thing, and they may look taken as its single facet. They may look very different to other things, but they all interrelate. But if you want to find a way into it, it's another way to help people either see what other people are doing, or to see whether the bits that they understand, how they relate to other things. So yeah, it doesn't want to be a hard edge thing, and it's not about saying, everyone has to be in something either.
I like that thought of showing text plus something else, because that showcases different paths people can take. But looking at that, it's nice because you see the beginnings of it. So if we think of text plus communication, then we can see language structure, things like that. If we think text plus video, then we can have areas related to subtitles and to not only captions but also transcribing. Right, transcribing video or text plus audio, you can get transcribing as well, and it's good to see it in all of those facets, and how it kind of it breaks right from into different segments. I love to see that in text. And when I think about, like the history of text, I see that we have all different sorts of things related to text. It goes into tools, it goes into books, it goes into encyclopedias, it goes into libraries, it goes into all these areas. But it's all text at the bottom. But it would be nice to maybe, if I want to filter out, show me everything that has to do with video plus text, then it stands out if it's tagged, right? But of course, that would be quite a bit of work of tagging. And I think that connects to what Frode has been mentioned, but I don't know if it's just tagging people or tagging things. And
So I have a dream related to this, and that dream is I want to see a student have the book printed out, and I want to see it completely read to shreds, lots of underlining.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I was unhappy that I could only do a soft cover in the beginning.
Mhm.
The issues with Blurb and Adobe, they don't talk to each other anymore, so I had no real choice. But
Yeah.
now I really like the idea of this book as a physical thing that is destroyed, that is no longer
Mhm.
pristine. And the reason I want it to be like this is I want, to me, the only important person, not only, the number one important person as a reader for the book is a student who wants to change the world in whatever way. And this is something they've been inspired by. So I want the student to be able to go in and do the things that you guys are talking about. I think that is really, really important. I think they need to be able to follow their hunches, their curiosity, their sparks based on the intrinsic stuff in the book, which they already can mostly, but also meta stuff, which is what you're talking about.
Mhm.
So
Just a thought. What do you think about some books that explicitly have a page or two at the end of each section, say notes with some blank lines to actually encourage the reader to put something down when they're going through it?
have you not read our book? It's one of the last pages. It says, and you, dear reader. It's from Tristan Shandy. I was kind of inspired by that book, so I much agree with what you're saying there. I hope your video's on. You can see me smiling at you and not
Yes, I
laughing.
can.
But yeah, to make it interactive in every way. Sorry, Peter, you just sparked a really fun perspective there.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful as the thing goes forward. It's just there are two reasons for having some metadata. One is sort of to tie things together. It's both in a positive and negative sense. Either people saying it's almost like, my view is X. I'm locked in this room with all these other people. What on earth have they got to do with what I understand? And it's a way to see, well, actually, it's all just a different facet of the same thing. So stop concentrating on the difference and look at the similarities, and better things can come from the whole. Or it may be, people wanting to start from a more positive notion and say, okay, well, how does what I'm doing map, or how do I find the things I'm interested from the things that I know within this broad circle? Because it's one thing to just be given the whole, which is lovely, but not everything. It's so broad that not everything there will immediately.
So basically, you want to turn the book into an EDL. That's very TED, isn't it?
I hadn't really thought of it in those terms.
A decision list for people who may not be into film.
I see. Well, in that, in that brutal sense, not really, and that's why I think that
why not have a Mark Anderson edition of the book, and a Raphael, etc., and a Peter.
Oh well, yes, but I wonder if that's a bit like home printing. It sounds wonderful, but you see what comes out of it.
No, what I mean is, let's say you are reading the book and you come across Raphael, and you think his stuff is cool, and there is a thing you can click, and you will see his edit of the whole book, if he has chosen to make one.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the Engines for Education CD-ROM that Roger Schenck did way back during like the Mac 2 era?
More information, please.
Okay, hang on one second. Let me just punch up the URL. The content of the book actually now exists as a website, even though the original CD-ROM is no longer usable. Let's see, we will have it in a second. Engines for ed.org.
When I'm talking about doing EDLs or doing different edits, I'm not going away from the meta stuff you're talking about.
Mm.
But
Okay, there's the mother website. Now let me try to find the actual book on it.
because I'm thinking this is also related to the highlighter kind of way of looking at it in a way, right?
Yes, and glossaries in a very loose sense, or you know, or sort of annotation lists. So it could either be someone's EDL of the content, or it essentially could be their meta, the EDL of their meta content. You know, their annotations, and that's a very nice and interesting idea. You know, and one that, you know, is very much of this time. Now we now have the affordances to be able to do it, or to start to be able to do it.
Okay, there we go. The last link shows how they tackled their overall book organization. And what they did was they had a set of personas, and each persona had its own path through the hypertext. So there was the I'm a media maven, I'm a business person, I'm an educator, and each one of those took you in a different route through the material.
Yeah, that's something that Mark and Chris and I've been talking about. I know a lot of people have, but that was also reading levels. The problem that we have is that we have quite a few famous people in their fields, so we can't really ask them to do a lot of work.
Mhm.
You know, it would be great if everybody had a paragraph summary of their piece. It would be great if they could provide tags for their piece and themselves. You know, that would really, really help something like this. But I mean, one of the things that, you know, comes up for me in the monthly meetings is lots of ideas, but I have to do it all. But maybe we're at a time now where we are building a community, and what we can do is say, you know, find some volunteers for different sections of the book. They do the summary, they do the tagging, and then we share it with the author and other people, you know, so that the author can be angry and do it themselves, fine, or accept it. But so we do build that, and we will have it, you know, I want to have another physical book, no question. But that doesn't mean we couldn't also make it more interactive digitally.
Yeah, definitely.
There's sparks another interesting thought in terms of, you know, you say sort of various people might take on a bit of the book is a thing that you know, came out of my recent study is it's our tendency to want to do everything full stack. And Wikipedia shows this in spades, is that, you know, really what people want to do is write their own Wikipedia, but just, you know, it be their bit, just be linked into everything else, which isn't really the concept at all. You know, it's actually great that there are people who are just really good at going around and doing things as mundane as, you know, sorting out commas and stuff, because they understand it and they enjoy it. And I think we should look for that in the broadest sense. There are some people who just, you know, happily are interested in things that we ourselves are not, and that's a good thing. And so it's putting those people in a position where they can use that interest and skill to the benefit of the whole. So that might be someone who's just quite good at doing sort of structure, and as long as they're happy to do it without feeling they own it. But the thing that they can bring to the community is sense of, no, I know how to do this. I can at least get it to the point where somebody else could say, yes, yeah, no, that looks right, or no.
Inspirational. Thanks for that link, Peter. That's really good stuff. I'm just thinking here, because obviously I'm stuck in the mindset of visual meta. But imagine a normal PDF/printed book that under the title has category, colon, and then just words. It wouldn't be that hard, as long as that was standardized, for the software that's reading it to understand that, oh, good man, to understand that has a semantic meaning, right? So let's say we are reading Peter's one, and it says categories, colon, law. That's one of the things in your category, right? Because the system knows this is standard, you click on law and you get an option to see everything else tagged by law. It could be that simple.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know, we
very
don't have to build a whole new software crazy environment. All we need to do is make things semantically understandable, right?
Yeah, I like to think of the connection between physical and digital, because we tend to stay either in one environment or the other, and usually people don't think of how they can interact together.
Yeah.
So I love physical books. I mean, they're amazing. I prefer to read on physical books. But if I wanted to, for example, this is Cataloging the World from
Oh, yeah.
the Alex Wright. And usually when I read now, I have like 3 different highlight colors. And then I highlight passages, names of people, and names of things and terms, right? And if I could just extract these things organized, I could have a quick overview of everything that has been named in the book. And that's impossible to do in a physical book, but that's very easy to do in a digital book, right? So if there was a way to enjoy the book physically, like being in the flow of reading, but whenever you want to do a deep dive, there's a direct connection to a digital edition where you can see the information structured in all of these extra materials, videos, photos, all these things. That would be incredible. And
I completely agree with you. Even with digital, I'm looking at how to do proper annotation with a few colors like you're talking about. But in terms of that mix, I could imagine if we had the budget, we could build an app that doesn't take stills, but it does a video. So you have to show it the front book, and then you just go quite quickly. And if it knows the book, it should be able to at least roughly know where the highlights are. And because we're talking about lines, not arbitrary space, it should be able to line it up.
yeah, and
Huh.
and OCR is getting better by the day, right? All of those technologies, like camera technology is getting insanely good, and OCR is getting really, really good as well.
But another
Automatic
really
transcribing.
interesting aspect to that is, sorry, I didn't mean to overtalk you. I have the same thing. I like to read on paper, but it's like, or if there's something like a code sample. No, I'm a very bad typist. I don't want to type in lots of stuff that has to be typed correctly. But also having digitized some work that was in PDFs. It's interesting what a bad place we've ended up in, because actually what you want in the interaction that Freud's just talked about is a layer that is the actual text, regardless of font or layout or something. In other words, it's almost like the plain text rendition of the text in the books where that's possible, which I think is most, bar things that are deliberately on the edge. So that you can then have these overlays and these links or something. Because technically, I think we've got ourselves in a really weird situation now where we've got sort of ebooks are often a walled garden, and we're done for the ease of getting them on a tablet with no real thought as to annotation.
So here's a challenge then to you guys, because I think what you said, both of you, is both true and complete bullshit. The reason for that is, I feel the same as you, so I'm not, anyway, what I'm saying is if you had a e-reader the size of a Kindle that had the right weight, that matters a lot when you're holding it, it looked nice, and the interactions were so that you could do that kind of highlighting, but in a natural way, not click, and then you have another click, and then you go, for crying out loud, you're operating a computer now.
Yes.
Right. Don't you think that there is a chance that you would still buy the paper book, enjoy that, but when you're really reading for thing, you would use that one? I think we basically, together as a group, we could probably develop the best iPad PDF reader annotation system ever, and have it automatically sync with what you have on your computer and make it joyous. I think there is an opportunity there.
The problem with PDF, it has many great things. One of its problems is it was designed to be a facsimile of paper. but that's actually not quite what I mean, it matters for maybe a facsimile of a legal document or something, but for the purposes that Raphael just sort of started describing, it's not actually that. What you want to be able to do is you want to be able to take your manual highlights done on a physical medium and put them onto a text representation so that you can do other things with it. Because this is something I come to a lot in the Tin Box community. Is someone said, I've done all the hard work now. I've highlighted all this stuff. What button do I press to turn it into something? Actually getting those annotations into somewhere else, wherever it is, where you can use them. I don't see PDF as a useful bridge at all.
Well, okay, that doesn't matter because we have no choice. That is
Well, fair enough, yeah.
right. So I agree with you. I almost stepped off a building because of fucking PDF. Anyway, I'm just thinking about an interaction whereby we give people in our community a draft copy of the book, the next volume, right? It looks just like the normal one, but we have built together tools for this purpose. So for instance, arbitrarily after every name or heading or whatever, there's a dot, just a dot. And if they tap on that dot, then they get options to categorize it. But they can also do scribbles on the margin, underlines, do whatever they want. But we've built it so that the point of it is at the end of a period, all of that comes into us again. And we have the means, and this is what you were just talking about, Mark, to extract that in a useful way and editorialize and say, what, this categorization is rubbish, but this one's brilliant. And now we have a richly thing. But the actual, I think Raphael and I are snobs of the same nature. I mean, look, just you can hear the texture of this,
Yes.
right? Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, we're not going to stop going into bookshops in Berkeley and saying, give me everything.
But it's more, it is more that, I mean, yes, there is an enjoyment of it as an art form, but I definitely know that I read better off paper than I do screen reading. It doesn't matter how big I make, it doesn't matter what I do. There's something, now maybe it's just the sort of learned dependence. I'm not, it's not that I have a sort of fixed view on it. It's more an experiential reflection that despite my best efforts and the fact I spent many years sitting in front of computers, I still read better off paper, unless I'm trying to read a novel on a Kindle, but that's a different thing.
I like that it takes up a physical space, like a physical book takes up a physical space, and it is in a physical place, right? I know that we can run out of space, and that's completely normal, but the fact that you can get a physical book faster than you can get a digital book. And sometimes you can scroll to the page faster because you have, like Post-its and things like that. And I know that a lot of things are better in the digital space, but they're not, it seems like they don't exist. Like I have hundreds of ebooks in my computer, but I go to my physical books more than I go to my ebooks. And I have read more physical books than I have read ebooks, right? I feel like ebooks and they're really good if you want to find out more information about them, or if you want to look at different highlights and structure and extract information. But physical books, I don't think they're going away anytime soon.
No,
right?
There's no question on that.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that the winner of the student competition got was the Moleskine E pen reader thing. Can I have the Hamilton? They have invisible dots on every page. So when you draw in that book and then you change page, do another one, go back, it knows where you're drawing digitally. It's absolutely insane.
It's the same one as the Wacom one, right? Wacom also had a digital pen that transformed everything that you're writing or drawing into PDFs.
Yeah, but yes, exactly. But the thing with both of them, it's a Swedish technology that they bought actually. It has microdots, so that the pen can see where it is. So every single area has a different types of, it's crazy. But I mean, look, just, this is my favorite book. Right.
How did I guess?
only halfway through it. It's like a cake. I'm taking my time, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But the thing, guys, is I think we are all talking like we're in 1985 and people are saying, I don't like computers. And we need to say, well, have you seen a Macintosh? All the issues you talked about, I agree with completely. But I really think in the community we have here with the specific points of view, we can at least make a system that is digital, that is much more pleasurable. One of the problems with the iPad is it's too big. It's like you're constantly having a 2-page spread. You can't just have that one page. There are some physical affordances, but by the way, how many people here actually own an iPad at the moment?
I have one,
Several.
actually a few.
Yes. You know,
Because I have talked to Jacob, and not so much my wife, about porting Reader to iPad.
Mhm.
And now this week, we finally managed to get annotation working with having a little yellow thing. You click and you write stuff. So it's not going to be that much work for us to port Reader to iPad. I have held off because of money and focus and all of that stuff. But if we want to make a special reading experience, both for a final future of text, but also a drafts that we can do the stuff you talked about, I think we could do that together.
Well, here's
There's
another
a-
thought. What about having a companion notebook that would have all of the headings from the main book, but blank space to be writing? So that you could have your book open and not be messing up the book, and then have the companion notebook and just take your notes and comments in that separate volume, and then multiple people could have their own volumes that they could share.
that's
Like a
a really
hybrid.
interesting idea. A sort of
Yeah.
digital commonplace books, because I think picking up Fred's point, I don't think probably either Raphael or myself were sort of saying, well, don't let's move forward from books. It's more that so it's a positive frustration that we haven't yet.
Sorry,
There you
Edgar,
go.
hang on. He's found some eggs outside. He just wants to tell us. And
wanted
Okay.
8 and Flamita from Invisible from Magic BB-8 and it has lots of magic
a
inside.
lot of magic inside. That's wonderful. You want to say hi to everyone? We freeze
Magic
up?
Go on.
BB-8.
High five.
Hi.
All right. Okay. I got to go back to my meeting now. That's very good with the magic inside egg.
But Daddy,
Yes.
also
Yes.
at camping, there's no teachers, there's other new teachers.
Yeah.
They're not
He's been at camp today. Sorry, everyone.
No,
Yeah.
that's completely fine. Well, I shared the link to this app called Marvin 3, and it's been my go-to app to read ebooks on iPad. It doesn't have any more, like the developer kind of disappeared. So there hasn't been any support for quite a while, but there's so many different things you can change. You can change the space between the margins, you can change the font spacing, the letter spacing, you can change the font size, you can change automatic reading, so it scrolls automatically, so you don't have to touch anything. There's vertical reading, there's all sorts of things that are incredible in an ebook reader, and I'm very sad that there's no more support for it. But what I'm the most frustrated is the support ebooks have. Like ebooks is just a freaking HTML file with very simple structure. Like, where's the digital book that has been promised to me? You know, that's just reading, like it's just a web page and standing as a book. So I remember when Apple released the iPad and these apps were coming out, and I think there was an app called Mr. Morris, Les Morris Fantastic Flying Books. And it was like a digital ebook with animations and everything. It's closer to a comic than a book, but I mean, it extrapolated on the notion of a book and having all these different things. And I feel like ebook technology has a lot to go to have what we need.
Here's the thing. I would love to start doing ebook stuff, but just because I have to survive, I have to focus on my primary user, which is a student reading an academic paper, which is
Of course.
very unpleasant. the fact that the academic community is stuck on cosmetics is a whole day's worth of rage. But how is because also EPUBs are generally very restricted, aren't they, rights-wise?
Yes.
It's just incredible how this potential has just been so destroyed.
Yeah.
I mean, I really echo Raphael's point. I mean, the exercise that admittedly I took upon myself to take the sort of clean digital text extraction I'd done of, admittedly, you know, a crazy book, which is this one, was fascinating in that just ebooks, as far as I can see, is a way to sell books to people who don't want to buy paper books. It's close, but not really there for being a form of interacting with text in the digital form. So we got two useful but broken things. There's, you know, it's a PDF that, you know, started out as a facsimile of paper and has limitations from it, but is very useful. I have ebooks, which are wonderful, they make things portable, but the things that you can't do, so it's really quite fascinating what is and isn't in there. Because you're right, when you open it up under the hood, it's just some XHTML with some extensions. The other thing that you rapidly realize is that most of our web pages have a boatload of sort of JavaScript guff in them to make them do all the stuff we want. Well, you can't and you don't really want to do that in a book, or you shouldn't. I don't think you want to start from presuming you want to do it. So there are some, you know, for the future of text, there's some really interesting questions in that as to, okay, aside from reading for pleasure, where it's almost a curated experience and things, but for text, more in the sense of, you know, text for learning and instruction and sharing of knowledge, we've still got a ways to go, and there are a lot of things that are still, I think, up for grabs.
Okay, guys, I think that we can do something amazing using PDF. Right, we can spend all day moaning on the issues. We all agree on them, and you know, we spent enough coffee on it. Unfortunately, I've had too much. I'm probably a bit too wired. But let's imagine that we make a PDF reader for iOS together that is designed for our book, for our workflow, for us only. That could include such things. Of course, we can't have reflowable text or anything like that. That would be in the future. But imagine such a simple thing as we know exactly where the margins are. So with a single tap, you could zoom in and it fills the screen nicely, right? If we have iPads that support Apple Pencil, we could make Apple Pencil be the means through the highlights. But if you want to do a search or something, you just select with your finger. You know, if we really look into elegances and affordances, then I
want
think
a command line to interact with it.
yeah, that would be for you, Peter. Look, that kind of level of interaction for clever people like you, we could do at some point. But you know, we're fighting paper conceptually, right? And on one hand, we're all saying, "Oh no, reading on an iPad is horrible," and then on the other side, we're saying, "Oh no, it's not interactive enough on a computer." Right? Which is pathetic, but that's great because we've been thinking about these issues for a long time. We're stretching the whole thing. So just imagine if we spend a day or two writing down our own personal requirements for how it should feel, you know, the user experience or whatever the current term is, and the interactions and the power it should facilitate afterwards. Right, it could even have some kind of a graphy magical thing at some point, and still we've lost none of the paper.
Is the issue about reflowing text out of interest, is that one of addressability? I mean, say, because from an accessibility standpoint, you know, I might need to embiggen the text because I'm hard of seeing, or I might want a slightly different typeface simply because it's easier to read. And
I can answer that. It's shit. Because we've really looked into this, because the original Visual Meta was addressing based. Now we have to put most of it in the actual Visual Meta in the end. Because even now, when we have an issue where you highlight text and then you fold, if you then click on the highlighted text, it won't give you the exact right location. There are weird issues with all of that. So I'm just talking about, Raphael sitting and having a nice coffee outside on a sunny day. For me, where you are is always sunny, okay?
It is today.
Let's have a look.
So
Yeah,
by the
that's,
way, has anyone figured out how to get books out of the book app on the iPad into other apps? I'd love to be able to get them into DevonThink to go, but I suddenly discovered that Apple Books is treating itself as being like a sealed safe, and the only way to do it would be to wire the PDF or the EPUB back to my desktop computer and then send it from the desktop computer back to the tablet in order to get into the other app. It seems utterly insane.
Apple
Missing
killed
something,
iBooks
or-
Author, right?
iBooks Author is basically, I think, been abandoned. I had, because I tried to run it the other day.
I
So,
think it was integrated into Pages.
all right, okay.
and
I
you
mean, the
can't-
trouble is, I'm sure Apple did it as a walled garden for copyright sales
Yeah.
purposes,
Also
rather
cannot
than for the
publish-
convenience of.
You can't publish books to Apple anymore either. I tried with our
Yeah.
book. I have an account as an author. There are no means to upload a new book.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, no, Peter, that's just awful ghetto, unfortunately. But what do you think? Shall we do something like this? Would it be fun?
I do like it. I keep thinking of Doug's presentation because the idea he presented, at least to me, is that everything was integrated. So whatever you did in one thing, another app could. It wasn't an app. Like the whole thing was one single app because everything talked to each other, right? So in a way, app stores and the app ecosystem was a huge mistake because you have this huge fragmentation of things and nobody talks to each other. It's getting better and better through APIs, right? That you can extract certain informations and interpret them and or reorganize them and things. But it's one of those things like, oh, standards suck. Let's create a better standard, and then another standard exists. So I feel like we're creating another thing, that will exist in the world. It will solve our problem, but it's going to exist by itself.
I think we're talking.
They're great. There's so many to choose from.
We're talking about several different things, I think. On one level, we're talking about the user experience and all of that stuff. That is in a sandbox, walled garden, whatever.
Yeah.
No question.
Mhm.
When it comes to the interrelation stuff, this is something that I've stressed over for many, many years. Sorry, just checking, not family, good. I really think Visual Meta can really help because it is based on BibTeX. It's completely open in
Mhm.
any level. And once things go on the clipboard, magic can happen. So I have had some guys try to make it possible to paste as a citation into Microsoft Word, for example. So that's just a matter of us learning what their stuff is. And when you copy, one of the versions on the clipboard is that, because of course you can have many different versions on the clipboard. So for the
Yeah,
kind of,
and it's unrealistic that it's going to come out the trap fully formed. I mean, there is some learning to go on. So this is also why it's useful to think about these things.
yeah, but I'm
What,
just,
what realistically we can do today. There may be some things we can't do until maybe next year, but because there are practical limitations.
conceptually though, I think what Raphael is talking about is something that has to always be a light on what we're talking about. Yeah, LaTeX to the clipboard, except you and Mark looked into LaTeX and export and you realized LaTeX is shit, so no.
I spent all week trying to make one document render.
No, that's not going to happen. But so what I'm thinking about is, as you know, Mac and iOS, you can copy between the devices as long as you're logged in, which is really useful, right? So you can be reading on your iPhone or iPad or whatever, copy text and boom, paste it in your word processor. That's a nice bit of workflow. But to support the things Raphael is talking about in terms of being walled in, there's no reason we can't build this magical stuff with categorizing and all of that and allow users who are interested when they copy for it to be copied into whatever the hex thing they need.
Mhm.
If it should go into DevonThink, if people there want to help us figure out how to make that transition, we can do that.
Yeah. What I'm most interested in that I have yet to present to the community, the Future of Text community, is what we're doing as a business and what we have been developing for for some years now. And it has a lot to do with visual documentation and visual things. It's a lot more visually, and extracting information of things to have people find information in a different way. And for me, like, when I think about the book, I think of all the other things that are connected to it. So if I see, like TED's text, for example, and I want to know more about, transclusion, for example, and the book doesn't go into it, and there's like a whole universe talking about transclusion and different ways and examples. And how do I get from the book into this rabbit hole of finding more information about things? So when I think about the physical environment, I think, for example, in QR codes. QR codes, they're native to every phone right now. You just point a camera to a QR code and it goes somewhere. And this somewhere can be like a digital environment that has the book, that specific page, with all of the complementary information for that specific article or that page or something like that. So if I don't know if it's a QR code, but QR code it took a long time to be implemented in everywhere. So I feel like if every article has a little QR code that goes somewhere, that would be a complement in the digital version to the physical version. And that to me is incredible because it bridges the gap between versions.
In principle, I don't have a problem with that design-wise. I have to mention, though, one of my students, when I was teaching, he came up with an idea because The Economist, who were doing a live brief for them, they have audio versions, a lot of their articles, which is fantastic on the iPhone, of having, by the article, not a QR code, but something that looks like a waveform. But they're all unique, so they would work like a QR code. So when you're reading, and if you want to listen, take the Economist app, just scan that and it'll start speaking it.
Do you have a link to that, Fred? Like,
no, it was a student project and it was just brilliant. QR code is, of course, amazing because it works on any phone without any special software.
Yeah.
So if we were to include a QR code at the beginning before everyone's title, it wouldn't necessarily be so ugly that I would jump up and down.
Yeah.
It may be, and then we have a fast server that links to that document, and then we have an internal addressing to up to that page. That's.
But I think you're right. I mean, and if people say, well, I don't like QR codes, the answer is, well, show me a better tech. I mean, the point is, there's a degree of pragmatism. I think it's interesting because there's mention of Doug's demo, and I'm thinking, so after all this time, we've got getting things done. We're still miles off.
We forget something. If we develop an iOS version of Reader, and of course, in that we will publish this book, then the human reader person can use this app to do that scanning. They don't have to use just the normal camera, right? So imagine you're reading the document on paper and you want to have the digitals. You open Reader on here. And on top, one of the clear options is scan document or whatever. And then you scan it. And you don't even need a QR code because Reader will know immediately which page you're on and open that there. That can be done.
Yeah, it can even be both in one because you don't need the whole space of the QR code. Sometimes you have the middle empty, or people make little designs in the middle of the QR code, and like that middle would be enough for the Reader app to address it.
Yeah,
you can have them two in one.
Exactly. There are ways to do that, and I would be very happy for us to work on something like that. I think that that bridging of physical and digital, it's of course a bit like Licklider's man-machine symbiosis, because very soon we will have proper.
I haven't finished reading that article yet. I have it on my computer.
All he basically says is that computers will be doing the real work soon. In the meantime, we have to work with computers. That's all he says.
Okay.
All right. So right now we have to work with dead paper. Very soon, I think, even a thick book like this, every page will be digital. So
What about instead of having the QR code as a big box taking up a lot of screen, you put the bits of the code around the border of the screen? So you can have the entire perimeter just be coated with little blocks that, however small we think we could get away with, that would still be visible and reasonably accurately captured by another device snapping a shot at the screen. And then when we make a highlighted selection on the page, that could cause that border pattern to shift so that the bits in the border pattern would correspond to what the highlight was on the page, and you get a digital identifier out of it that way.
So what you're saying is you're combining two of Raphael's ideas.
The highlights.
Yep.
Raphael, this sounds like something you guys are working on. So, spill some.
It's actually not. It's actually not. We're totally focused on visual things. We're not doing anything related to text. The only thing we're doing related to text is what we have is our navigation sidebar. And the way for me to explain that is, okay, let's say you want to buy a bicycle, Fred, right? And we take context into this relationship. So if you want to buy a bicycle right now using the web, what would be the step-by-step process? You could start searching on Google, you could go to Amazon, you can ask people, you can go to Google Maps to find different stores that sell bicycles. There's a lot of work that you have to do to find the product, right? And the way we're doing it is by filtering out information related to context. So if you want to buy a bicycle and you apply one filter to it, let's say a brand filter, you want a specific brand. So everything that is not that brand will get filtered out. And then another filter would be price. Let's say you want to invest 500 euros in a bike, right? So everything that is over that amount will get filtered out. And then another filter would be location. I want it to be 10 kilometers from my house. And once you apply like 3 filters, the amount of selection you have goes from thousands to tens. So it's a completely different way of finding information and having people as a protagonist to find that information. And the way the web is structured right now is a mess because everybody's starting from scratch every single time. So we're rethinking that way of search information based on the information itself. The difficulty of that is that, the tags related to bicycles are different than tags related to clothes, right? There's different things that change based on the category. But some things are the same for every kind of information. So location, context, language, things like that are universal. So those are the things that we are exploring, but it's all related to filtering information and finding information.
Interesting. So what do you guys think?
That's Ring Peter's comment.
Edge codes. QR border.
Allowing you to make edge decision lists.
Peter, I would love to see a little booklet of all of your ideas because you have a lot of good ideas that some of them seem kind of hard to execute, but they're all very nice.
That must be the Emmett Brown in me. You can't keep a good mad scientist down. But you see, it always irked me that the QR code winds up disrupting whatever you're looking at because it's that big square block.
Mm.
And you have a lot more pixels around the extreme border of the screen anyhow. And it should be relatively unobtrusive. I don't know, would it bother you if there was 2 pixels of noise around the outer edge of whatever you were reading? Only it wouldn't actually be noise, it would be the data.
Is this a speck of dust? I would try to clear it out.
Well, I mean, that's kind of an implementation detail of, testing what actually would scan and so on.
But are we talking about putting these edge marks on a paper book? In other words, because that allows us to jump from the paper book to the
Right.
same location. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting idea
Mhm.
because it does get to this thing of getting a reasonably seamless transition
Yeah.
for non-trivial, reading book by the pool type, reading a novel kind of thing. But
The only-
if you've got a book where you're doing serious annotation and knowledge collection, that kind of thing, to be able to move from one medium to the other, especially to take or improve the collection of and connection of annotations, seems to me an incredibly powerful metaphor.
Yeah, I have seen QR-like codes that, like Peter's idea. It's kind of like that. In the edges of the page, you have different codes, so that works as like a very big QR code, right? You have the edges and little squares on the sides, and it detects the whole page. But it would be like a full page detection connected with highlight detection, right? And it would take that highlight and
Well,
Yep.
I mean,
throw it into the digital world.
we can talk about this theoretically forever, but if we are to build something, we have one initial choice, which is the user going to use any camera? Then it has to be a QR code. And then we can talk about where to put it. If
Yeah.
they're going to be using a specific app, we don't need any QR code. The actual page will do.
I like the idea of QR codes connecting physical and digital, and we can see different ways we can explore that, and that would already be something. Like how will it complement? I don't want to have to choose physical or digital, but how can they work together?
Well, the thing is, yeah, I have to go in a second. The thing is, we mustn't forget that these things are copy protected. So let's not get carried away. What we're talking about is, if we are talking about a digital notebook, like Peter said, it can have the headings. But even having the headings probably goes into the publisher having to agree with them being there. And that's going to be tough. That's a bit outside of our remit. We really are talking about academic PDFs, right? Let's just be honest. That's all we can touch.
But we're talking in the context of the new version of the Future of Text book, right?
Yeah, we're talking about the new version of the text for all mankind. New episode just got released. That was worth it being. Brilliant TV series. No, yeah, but what I'm saying is, in terms of how it is produced, if it's going to be used for anything other than our book, it has to be a free, open, unrestricted PDF. It's not possible for us to start doing EPUBs with copy protection or anything like that.
So should the app be an Mac, iPad only app, or should it be a progressive web application that could be used on any device?
I don't want to do anything on the web. I don't like the web. Things rot on the web. It's a garbage heap. That's part of why I don't like the web. If the server where it is not available, it goes down. If you're not online, it goes down.
The web is so broken, guys.
I'm not interested. The web is a good idea, but I own Reader, our PDF reader, of course, and I have been told by my programmer that making an iOS version is simple of what we have, basically. So I may do that. It'll help with my market share, even though it's free. So what I'm suggesting here is that we take that as a community, and if you guys want to be involved in the design process and get fully accredited,
Oh, of course.
great. That would be really, really cool. So I'm thinking, if we take normal academic PDFs plus our special PDF for the book, do special stuff in Visual Meta while keeping in mind other documents do exist, and look at the annotation aspect, the categorization aspect, all the stuff we've looked at in this discussion. I think we may make something quite good, because we have such different backgrounds and experiences and point of view on this.
Yeah, and the danger is shooting for perfect, but I think having something at all is very important, because there are lots of people who, until they see some sort of outline of the thing, just won't get it by being told about it. They sort of need to see, in a sense, a demo.
Yeah.
So I'm going to now, on our community page, back to community. I'm going to click on announcements. And I'm going to click new posts. Either iOS.
I'll do some research on QR codes. See the possibilities in them. Frode, have you seen an app called Pitch? It's a presentation app from the creators of Wunderlist.
Can you say it again? That's what it's called?
It's called Pitch.
Do you have a
pitch.com. Yeah,
Is it in life today?
It's called pitch.com. And
Oh, pitch.
yeah, what I like about it, it's a nice way to collaborate on slides, pretty much on like PowerPoint things. So if I create things related to, because on Circle, I can share print screens of things. And here we can collaborate on something visually related to presentation. So if you take a look, if you guys like, I will invite you to a board we can collaborate on. It's really good. It's been my go-to presentation app. And I've been using Keynote professionally for more than 10 years and I've switched. So that says something about this app.
Yeah, yeah, let's consider that. So what I'm going to do is post now on our Circle community that we are looking to do this, just see if anyone else is interested. And then we're going to try to have some ideas written down by Monday. Is that cool? Even if it's just a sentence.
Sure.
Yeah, and Fred, you kindly sent me the early, a couple of days back, the sort of timeline thing as PDF. Is it? Could you send that? Can I have an author.core or something? Or were you intending that I mark it up in Reader? What's the plan? By way of giving you feedback.
It's you, so I've just texted you. Yeah, I'll send that to you. Anyone else is interested, I can do that too.
Yeah,
What is
sounds
it?
good.
Hang on, I'm not sure if this, oops. Okay, yeah, I'll just upload it here. So you guys are all okay with the idea of looking into this fun stuff?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sending it's not a supported file format. Okay, let me compress it then.
This is beginning to sound like my LaTeX compiler that's been telling me no for 3 solid days.
Peter says no.
Well, no, all I had to do was to add one small bit to my thesis for the final sign off handed, and that has broken the entire document. Thank you.
Okay, so please, this post will be up in a few minutes. Please just comment or something there or whatever. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. It's exciting to at least be playing around with a specific project, whatever happens to it. And I greatly appreciate the dialogue. And if any of you, hang on,